Live from the center of the earth, it's triggered, and it's back. We are back, everyone. Welcome back to Triggered. Today we're going to be talking about some random bullshit like we used to, and we're going to have some fun. So today we have a awesome assortment of guests. So I am the host, Guinness, or Triggered, and we also have with us Mr. Wayne. Wayne?
What do you mean we're back? We've never been away. What the fuck is wrong with you? I've been right here this whole time.
Yeah, I don't know what you're... Yeah, I mean, you're right. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of sick today, so forget about that.
I think you need to explain yourself.
Well, technically this isn't actually Guinness. I am a time-traveling dimensional alien, so, you know, confusion will ensue.
Oh, then we've got nothing further to discuss. Good day, sir.
And I'm having mic issues, of course. We also have with us Will. Will?
Yeah, I'm here, as always.
Great introduction, Will. We also have Lenny.
Nope,
Hello.
no such thing. We have something we're feeding Snickers bars, and it's motherfucking sloth.
Hello, my name is Lenny,
you
aka
talking about,
Slothstooth. Yeah, whatever.
Hey, you guys!
Oh.
Guys. Yeah, whatever.
Also, we have the amazing Razoria.
Hi.
We have Pat.
Yep, that's correct. I am here.
He is indeed. And finally, we have a Mr. Lone.
Last but not least, I hope.
So tonight, just to start off, we're going to be talking about politics in general. I kind of want to hear what everyone, how everyone falls into politics, the politics in their country specifically, and you can also kind of elaborate on the whole what you think about the political compass, whether or not it's even viable at all, or how you would characterize yourself politically. And then after that, I kind of want to talk about the American election, so we'll get into that after. So who would like to start us off? Let's see. How about Wayne? Wayne, can you start us off? Tell us a little about what you think about your own political position.
Well, let's start with that political compass. It's probably about the most useful tool you've got for broadly putting people into categories, but it doesn't really tell you anything about what two people might actually believe in, because you can get a similar score to somebody else having different answers. So I think that people's political views are obviously a lot more nuanced than a point on a 10 by 10 graph.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, the whole point of the graph is just, you know, like you said, a broad sort of categorization.
Yeah, the problem is, I think that people tend not to view politics that way. It's much more unidirectional. So you have these kind of partisan systems where you say have, you know, Democrats and Republicans in America, where people see the others as the ultimate evil, and everything that they stand for is wrong and should never ever be voted for.
Right. Well, I'm sure the audience members who aren't retarded have figured out you're from the UK. So, like, go over a little bit about what's politics like in the UK and where do you end up falling.
At the moment, it's quite interesting. I, against all plausibility, find myself supporting UKIP over the other parties, which they definitely wouldn't be a party I'd consider to be fully aligned with what my ideals are politically. But they are the most practical and sensible of all the parties available, so I think, you know, they should be the ones that we vote for. But I think if I was to explain UK politics to you, even just UK politics as they stand right now, it's a very, very complex and messed up situation. But the most important issue is probably this EU referendum, whether we stay, whether we go. I'm very much in favour of getting the hell out of Dodge.
Right. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I mean, the EU is generally, to me, it's a nice experiment, but I don't think it's worked, and I think people need to accept that and move on.
Yeah, it's a shit show.
Yeah.
I think if you want to hear more about the EU, you should probably have a little chat with Mr. Sloth there.
Yeah, okay, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we move on to Lenny? Lenny, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Belgian politics are like and where you end up falling?
Okay. Okay, one thing you have to know about Belgium is that we don't have, like, for example, the Brits have, I say, two major big parties, like, Tories versus Labour. You have the Lib Dems, who sort of are supposed to be sort of the intermediate between those two. But we have a lot of parties, and so I'd say we have about 9 or 10 parties. 4 or 5 of them would try to make coalitions with each others. And to characterize it's sort of you have obviously you have the left, and then you have the left will be the socialists, so the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Green Party, the Christian Democrats. I would also characterize as being from the left, and then you have supposedly right-wing parties like the Flemish Nationalists and
Sorry.
yeah, pretty much. And it's sort of, I mean, I don't want to. It's sort of they agree on so many things. I don't know. It's kind of depressing because they all sort of they all accept a lot of things. There's no Eurosceptic party at all. All the parties want a very strong Europe. None of them want any criticism of the European Union. Obviously, Belgian politics is actually a bit more complicated because you have the entire sort of French part of Belgium and the Dutch part of Belgium, which hate each other. But the French part of Belgium likes the Dutch part more than the Dutch part likes the French part. It's just all a bit of a mess. But I don't like any party in my country because they're all just, I'm not going to say they're all pretty Marxist, I'd say. They all have sort of same assumptions about everything. They're pretty much all SJWs. They virtue single all the time. It's just pretty depressing. And when it comes to the EU, well, I mean, the best way I could describe the EU is, just fucking awful. Super national organization that wants to be a state, and resembles to me a lot of the things which I thought we sort of did not like in the 20th century, the end of the 20th century, when it comes to, they have sort of similar structure to, I'd say, some of the Soviets, not necessarily saying they're the Soviet Union, I'm simply saying there are some similarities, especially with the European Commission. But yeah, it's a shit show. I mean, you don't really have a choice, and one of the problems in Belgian politics as well is that you are forced to vote. You can't sort of not vote. If you're a Belgian citizen, you have to go to the voting booths. Otherwise, you get a big fine.
You can basically just say, like, write some bullshit name, right? Or
That's
is there
true,
any way
but
out
the
of it?
problem is if you vote neutral, whatever you call it, then actually what tends to happen is that your vote sort of what happens if you sort of mess up your vote, or you say I vote white, they call it white voting, then you actually are helping the majority party, because when it comes to allocating seats, the white votes will go to the majority party. So you're going to vote for the majority party if you are not going to vote. So
Right.
it's just garbage,
It's
Belgian
so
politics
awesome.
it's really awesome, and Belgian
I mean,
politics is
if
really.
I wanted to create some type of system and manipulate it statistically, I definitely totally wouldn't choose that model, except for if I was using sarcasm right there.
Right. Well, I personally fall. I'm obviously more of the right, and I find it. Well, there's no real party in my country that represents any of my opinions, even closely. Because, for example, the extreme Flemish nationalists, as they're called, with the head of that party has to have police guards and armored vehicles because he gets so many death threats from leftists, like anarchists and whatever they call themselves, communists and Islamists, and that party is a bit of a fringe loony party that doesn't really do anything. It's sort of, it's sort of you pretty much just have one choice, which is sort of pretty much all the parties. I mean, and the coalitions don't really do anything. I mean, they get together and they bicker at each other, and that's it. They don't really do anything. It's just a mess.
Right.
Yeah, and
So
it's really hopeless as well because most of our decisions about our country are actually not made. Well, they're actually made in my country, but not by the government. They're made in Brussels, in the European Union. They're
right.
not made in Belgium. They're made in Europe's beautiful, lovely state, which I have to worship. And I'm a European citizen apparently. I have to have a European passport, and I don't know, whatever. It's just garbage.
All right. Well, let's move on to Alan. Let's talk a little bit about Brazilian politics, because then we'll finally get to the three Americans and me. So, Alan, what is politics like in a country like Brazil, and where do you end up falling politically?
Right now, 17th of March, we're having a shit show in our politics. We're having this big incident where the former president was asked to join the cabinet of ministers for our current president, which is Dilma, asked Lula. Lula, as everyone knows, here in Brazil, is a very strong political guy. He's very political savvy. He posed the masses towards his political party. If it wasn't from him, I think that his political party would be pretty much done. And what's going on is that he was being investigated by our police. He was not condemned yet. He was just being investigated, and just to prevent him from being arrested, the president asked him to be a minister. Because if he is a minister, he has what we call privileged forum. I'm not sure it's forum, the word, but he can be investigated by a common police. He can be condemned by the common justice. He has to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has this special thing where the president can nominate the jury of the Supreme Court every X years. So what's going on is that PT, which is the political party, the Workers' Union Party, was held for so long in Brazil that now they have most of the chairs occupied by them, and those places are just for life. If you're indicated to go to the Supreme Court as a judge, you can be there for life. Only if you retire that you go away. So what we have here is that 16 years, nearly 14 years of one single political party being in our country, which is a very socialist-driven party. We're having an economical collapse here. Unemployment is all-time high. What's going on is exactly what people in the USA would describe with Bernie Sanders being president. I mean, socialism is very good when everyone has money because you can redistribute it. But what happens with socialism is that money runs dry. And when it runs dry, it's a mess. And this is what's going on here. We don't have enough money anymore. And the political system is all skewed, and this, just so you have an idea of how much the political system is working here. When the former president was put in the news that he was being investigated, our stock market rose 4%. When he was being nominated, the stock market fell 3%. Just so you have an idea how tied in politics are with economics here in our country.
Right.
And what's going on here in Brazil is remarkably similar to what's going on in the USA, because we're being held so long by socialist and leftist parties that it's rising. The right-wing parties are starting to rise, and the leftists are calling those neo-Nazis and shit. But we have this guy here in Brazil, which is basically a poor man's Donald Trump, which is Bolsonaro, and he's a former military member. The only thing that keeps him from being much more successful politically is that he's tied to the military. And when he does that, it brings on the past of dictatorship in our country, which was tied to the military. So that's what's going on. I think that I'm not sure if our president is going to run the next 3 years. I think an impeachment is going to happen. And when that happens, we're going to have new elections. You guys are going to hear that Brazil is going to have new elections. And when that happens, I'll be fucking happy because that bitch is running our economy. And
So
yes,
where
I'm
do you-
right-wing. I'm mostly right-wing, but I have some libertarian values as well. I believe in free market, for example, which is not a particular right-wing view. But I tend to agree with a lot of the right wing, more than now than the left.
Right. Okay. So we've covered all the foreign governments. Let's get into the big one a little bit. Now, not fully, guys. We're gonna
And
get into that
Belgium is
later.
big.
Just fuck Belgium's not big. we'll get into the full-on American stuff later. But just where do you guys fall individually? Will, go ahead, start.
I think it's kind of a trick question. I'm sorry to be such a special snowflake here, but my general assessment is I think the whole right-left dichotomy is not super useful. I think it all kind of harkens back to a classical definition of political balances that just don't make a whole lot of sense in the 20th century, much less the 21st.
Sure. I mean, the original question was vague anyway, so just go ahead and give them.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get there. So, but anyway, the way I see things, and think I'm crazy for this if you like, but it's generally speaking Marxists v. everybody else. And I don't really see it being an enormous right-left split. I think that there are a lot of Marxists who have taken on the mantle of calling themselves left, but it's just it's just a meaningless term. It doesn't actually describe what they believe. And on the right, you have this complete fucking circus of a zillion different ideologies, which are just anything not Marxist, and they don't really agree with each other on anything. It's sort of like the old alliance of the Allies versus the Axis, where you have like Stalin and the UK and the US all on one side, and they all have very different ideas about a lot of things, but they're all fighting on the same side. And that's not to say, that anyone on one side or the other is right or wrong. I'm not, citing, virtue here, but I'm just saying that an opposition tends to polarize political positions. And more than anything, I'm not a Marxist. I would consider myself a classical liberal. I am a constitutionalist. I believe in sort of Republican government, not to associate with a political party, but with the notion of rule by law. So that's where I am. But I don't value the left-right dichotomy. I think that's a trap. That's just my own personal belief.
No, that's totally valid. Pat?
Let's see. I guess we'll start with the topic of the political compass. I don't know. It's more helpful than it's unhelpful. It won't tell you where a person sits on an exact particular issue, like making the wall 10 feet higher or keeping the wall at the current proposed size. But it'll give you an inclination about what it might be. And let's see. Literally, and I guess on paper, I'm registered with my state's Libertarian Party, so I am a Libertarian, and I'll be going to our state's convention and see who we nominate. One of the main reasons for that is because in my state, the way parties hold major party status is by having a certain percentage of people vote for that party's candidate in the gubernatorial elections. So let's say we had a Green Party in 2004, and their candidate got 1.2% of the total gubernatorial race vote. They would then, for the next 4 years, have major party status, which makes it easier to get people on ballots and so forth, get state funding, etc. And let's say in 2008 they got 0.5% of the vote. They would no longer have major party status. So one reason why I'm in the Libertarian Party in my state is because it's a low population state, so my vote has a lot of effect, and I like having as many political parties as possible. Makes me feel more comfortable. So if I can help open up the ballot, I am more than happy to do so. I vote in all state, local, federal elections. Vote for one Republican, no Democrats. I write in my name a lot. I write in teachers' names a lot, especially for like, local government stuff. Things I think they'd be competent in. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, were you finished?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were done. Lone, let's hear from you what you think about the whole political situation.
Mostly it's garbage, but I suppose I could put it this way. 100 years ago, I'd be a radical liberal. 10 years ago, I'd be a moderate, and nowadays, I guess I'd be a rabid right constitutionalist. So, personally, I see myself as a centrist, or at least more in the center or off the goddamn map. How to put it? Basically, you deal with a problem that's in front of you. You see what the issue is, you look back and see what caused the issue, and you solve the fucking problem. I don't really see what most of the political bullshit has to do with it, because most of bureaucracy doesn't solve a damn thing.
Right. Okay. Well, what about before we get into, because I guess I should probably go over my own political thing. So Canada.
Nobody cares about Canada. What the fuck, man?
Who cares about Well, actually, I don't think. I mean, if you want, like Will said, if you want, I can literally start telling like what branch of the right, because the right, as Will pointed out, was very sort of divided, and just the only thing they can agree on is that they don't like the Marxists. That's the only thing they can.
Well, I actually wanted to expand on some of what Will was saying there, because it's quite interesting that as you say that it's everybody against the Marxists. And I think in this instance, it's not just the right, or what you would classically call the right, or what these people would have you believe the right is. I certainly don't consider myself to be either right-wing or conservative. I still would say I verge left of centre. Of course, we're talking about political compass here, so let's. I don't want to muddy the waters by getting into a discussion, because we've had this discussion before, and it can go on for hours and hours and hours. So I won't muddy the waters in that regard. But what you're seeing is that people who traditionally vote for the left-leaning parties, or the parties associated with the left, are also finding themselves in opposition to these progressives. And part of the problem is the progressives presume to speak for everybody on this supposed left-right divide. They claim to speak for everybody on the left, and to be honest with you, they try and speak for the bloody right as well. So they're the ones that are putting people into these very, very tight categories and saying these types of people are this, and these types of people are that, and if you're not that, then you're this, and this is evil.
Yeah, part of the reason the left-right divide doesn't really work too is because, like as you mentioned, like in the United States, political parties have switched from side to side many times, and the entire idea of the left and right has almost switched. So people who used to be on the left are now on the right, and vice versa in some cases. So it's very difficult to find a definitive, objective way to say this is where you fall politically.
Well, we all know where it came from. It came from the French Revolution. Obviously, it was the left was the people were the Jacobites, the right were the people on the other side of Parliament who were for the preservation of the ancien régime, I suppose. But yeah, so so in a sense, it's very old, and it isn't really updated to sort of, I'd say, modern day needs. I think that's well said. One of the problems was obviously, I think it is still useful though, in some extent, but I don't know. It might just be because it got hammered into me as a kid that there is such a thing as left and right that I keep using it. I don't know. I still think it's somehow useful, even though I don't think it's really that updated. I don't think it is as simple as, for example, which some people have proposed, that it's simply authoritarianism versus libertarianism. I don't think it's that simple as well. I think it's also a simplification of the entire political thing, because obviously some people would argue that economic policies with regulation is a sort of authoritarianism. So now you get in that issue, and then So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think the compass is useful, but I also think if you're talking about the compass test online, the compass test itself, it's very biased and asks very weird questions.
I think that's why a compass is better than.
Sorry,
Yeah, I think that's why a compass is better than two intersecting lines in that regard, because it certainly isn't two separate points which just happen to intersect.
Right.
It's a wide range of different views. I mean, the most important thing I think in people's minds politically is economics and the libertarian or authoritarian nature of whatever party they support. But if you wanted to look at it in terms of the classical left and right, I think you'd find that there's a massive dense population around right of centre, and then carrying through to left of centre. Very, very few people over on the extreme right, because to be honest with you, who can you really claim is that extreme in any sense? And then a very, very extreme left. So that's one of the reasons I think left and right is less useful, is because most people are moderate. Most people hang around the centre and are relatively moderate on everything. There's no super authoritarians. Sure, there are a few super crazy progressives, but I think those people are outliers rather than anything politically sensible or practical.
Sure. But I mean, most observers, I would say, in politics simply, not most, but I think a lot of people who vote these days sort of vote for, I'm not going to say virtue signaling, but especially if you talk about it with people, it's sort of very virtue signaling politics in general.
My country is very virtue signaling.
My country, definitely. So.
Yeah, it depends on where you are, but there's always going to be an element of that. I mean,
sure.
Politics is kind of a form of show business, and it's becoming even more so in the States. If you look at Tony Blair, for example, when he was elected, yes, Anthony Blair, a large part of the reason he was voted is because he was a charismatic man. You talk about virtue signaling. I mean, he epitomized it.
Yeah, but he wasn't that bright though for being a charismatic guy.
Well,
maybe he was.
I don't know. I didn't really see much evidence of it, but I didn't see much evidence either way. To be fair to the man, but I don't think that people were voting for him based on anything other than the fact that he wasn't another Tory. So. Right. It could have been another guy, but he just happened to have that right blend of charisma.
Didn't Blair come after like 8 years of a Major, or was that?
Yeah, he came after Major and Thatcher.
Yeah, Major was also a bit of a disaster. Yeah.
Well, John Major, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Spitting Image, but it was like a lampooning of public figures in a puppet show, with very, very caricaturesque puppets of the people they were lampooning. And John Major's puppet was grey, and he ate peas, and that was pretty much him.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was seen as boring and lacking colour.
Yeah, it's also something I've noticed with in the Tory party itself. I think before Blair was a lot of sort of discussion between the Eurosceptics and non-Euro skeptics, and they had a lot of issues with each other in the Tory party at least.
Well, I think the two main issues in politics at the moment, we've all touched on them, are the current election that's happening and the issue in Europe, which I think Europe is a powder keg that's waiting to blow. I think because we've got a very strong American contingent here today, it'd probably be wiser to focus on the American election tonight rather than going into Europe.
Right.
Yeah, we were just gonna get into that after everybody had kind of talked about politics in general. One more thing I wanted to cover before we get into the American election, because that'll be a beefy subject. I was wondering if Lone wanted to try to explain his idea for political compass.
Not on the stream, no.
No, not today. Okay. All right.
Not
so
today.
we'll get into the American shit then. So everybody obviously knows the American election has been particularly fascinating this time around, and everybody has an opinion on it. So I'll start, I guess. I find that of all the candidates, for one thing, and just going candidate, one by one, most of the Republican frontrunners are pretty shitty. I don't mind Trump though. I don't think he's as bad as he's being made out to be, but I also think that he's not going to hold to some of the policies that he says he's going to, and that's part of the reason I think he won't be as bad. I just don't think it'll be as much of a disaster as people think with Trump, but other Republicans like Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, I think they're just complete idiots.
Well,
As
Rubio
for
dropped out. So
Ruby's
that's the
out.
problem.
Yeah,
is he out? Okay, well fuck him.
he's out.
Yeah, but Rubio actually he said that he's actually going to retreat from politics in general. So,
Yeah, he's gonna quit politics and go back to living in the pool house.
exactly.
But,
yeah.
I found that most of the frontrunners are clowns. As for the Democrat side, I find Bernie and Hillary to be both reprehensible for different reasons. I think that Bernie's ideas for his vision of a socialist America are far too much. I mean, he wants to basically go farther than Canada even has, and I think he's just got too many crazy ideas. I also think I just can't get behind a progressive candidate. As for Hillary, obvious reasons, I can't get behind somebody who, I mean, obviously I'm not going to vote, but I just the idea of them, and they will have an effect on us. I find her to be obnoxious beyond belief because the fact that most people are just going to vote for her because she has a vagina, and other than that, her policies are shit, and she's just sort of the status quo candidate. So as far as I can tell from the perspective of an American, I would say I was fucked if I was an American. I don't see much choice. I'd say Donald Trump is your only choice at this point. Because, like I said, I think that I foresee destruction with all of these candidates, but the least destruction from Donald Trump. So I think if you had to choose the lesser of all the evils, it's Donald Trump.
Well, most politic events are being held by the less worst people. For the most popular guys are usually the guys that people think, oh, this is the guy that will probably cause the least damage to the country, so I'll vote for him.
Right.
I think the only reason you don't support Bernie Sanders is because you don't know the difference between socialism and democratic socialism.
Why are you so quiet, Pat?
Oh, because I want to remain nice and calm.
He wants to be Bernie
Because I'm a
fan.
Bernie supporter and I'm very calm.
That is microdosing.
I am microdosing and very nice you.
I see.
Trump's cool. I love him actually forever and ever and ever, and I'm the biggest Trump supporter in the world. No, but I don't know. As days go by, my likelihood of voting for Trump is increasing, and the more hate I see on Trump, the more likely I'm voting for him.
Yeah, the one thing I will point out though is that Trump isn't all good, and while I think he is mostly a compromiser, I think that there are certain things he might step over in terms of his boundaries. One of those being the fact that he wants to extend libel laws to basically fuck with newspapers whenever they don't agree with him, which is obviously very snaky. So it's not all good, but like I said, lesser of all the evils is what I see.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read that policy, so I can't have an opinion on it, I suppose. I don't know what he's doing, or what he plans on doing, or what his proposal is for changing the libel laws. So, I don't know.
Let's hear from the other Americans what you guys think about the whole political situation.
Well, I mean, my stance on it is that the political system has been dry heaving for about 15, 20 years. Just there's been one bullshit sort of
I
political...
meant regarding this election, sort of.
That's where I'm going.
Oh, sorry.
And once you understand that the system has been dry heaving for decades, it makes Trump seem, or just anything that goes in there and flips the board game over and says, fuck this. I mean, in the same way that I don't think that the left-right dichotomy is relevant, I also don't think that the Democrats and the Republicans, as political entities, are ultimately serving their constituents. And you know, the Simpsons famously, made fun of this with their blorg and blog guys. You know, they've got the two kind of like hand puppet candidates that, and you can vote for either one, but it's the same guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are differences in the candidates, but ultimately, one of the things that's been very dangerous, and it's been a syndrome in the United States, is that we have increasingly a political class. We have these dynasties. You know, we've got Clintons and we've got Bushes. And it's happening at multiple levels. It's happening at the federal level, it's happening at the state level, it's happening at the city level, and it's this thing where power ultimately gets inherited to their children, right? I mean, Chelsea Clinton is already being groomed to be president of the United States. She is being introduced to all the kingmakers. She is being coached in, the rhetoric on how to deliver the speeches, and they are definitely working out for her like a 5-step plan wherein she sort of stepping stones her way into a believable candidate in the same way that Hillary went from being Bill Clinton's wife to a serious contender for U.S. presidency. And how did she do that? She went from being Bill Clinton's wife to a senator in New York, a state which she had no prior connection to.
Yeah.
And she was basically just handed a senatorial seat by effectively machine politicians who just have the ability to just go, there, yours. And then she went from there to contesting Obama in the Democratic election, which was only relevant in, again, because she had the Clinton machine behind her. And ultimately what they did was they forced Obama, despite the fact that Obama doesn't like Hillary, they forced him to accept her as Secretary of State. That was a compromise. And she basically took it like a no-work union job, right? She really didn't do a whole lot. And now she's going from that, despite, I mean, you heard like her supporters, you can ask them what was the great thing she did in foreign policy while she was Secretary of State, and they just deer in the headlights, they've got no idea. You can't say anything about it. And from that, she's, now going to become President of the United States. I mean, is anyone talking about Condoleezza Rice? Or think of, a long list. Kissinger, does anyone want Kissinger? President. I mean, no one picks secretaries of states for president, but it's happening because she's got that machine organization behind her, driving in, and I don't think that serves Democrats, not the voters in any case. I don't think the enormous amount of what's being offered from the Republicans especially serves anybody. And so there's this populist rise that's happening, and everyone is just trying to dry heave these basically would-be nobility out of our system. And it's going to get ugly. So, I mean, that's what I believe.
Let me ask you guys, the two of you that are from America, one thing.
Three.
Asking as a non-American, have you guys watched any full season of House of Cards? Because I wanted to know how real is that connection in between what's not real and what might be real in this show, because I think it ties into a lot of what's going on in real life.
It's real and not real at the same time, like all fiction.
Like
it's an exaggeration. There aren't really Frank Underwoods running around like killing people. You could throw maybe some allegations. Did the Clintons a lot of what the Frank Underwood stuff is based on is stuff people have said about the Clintons, which a lot of it's true. Some of it is, who knows. As to dirty tricks and playing games and saying things just because it gets you a point, oh, sure, of course that happens. But, how many politicians in Washington are pushing reporters into subway trains? I'd probably say none.
I think that one's it's tone versus content, really, isn't it? There's the tone is pretty much spot on, but most of the content, as Will says, is highly, highly exaggerated. You might be able to find individual cases where some of the stuff that that Mr. Underwood has supposedly done have happened, but you're not going to find it all in one man who becomes president.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to split up all the things he's done amongst, I don't know, like 100 people or something, you could probably do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
I mean, there was famously that hilarious guy who was keeping bricks of bribe money in his freezer wrapped in tinfoil, so they looked like little ice cream sandwiches. And when they finally raided his, I think he was keeping them like literally in his congressional office, and the FBI went in there. And they opened up his fridge, and it was just stacks of money in little tinfoil packages. So, I mean, it happens. There's definitely corrupt people.
Of course there are. And, corruption comes along with opportunity, and you don't get many more opportunities than living and working in DC. But if you're interested, Eric, I can give you a kind of breakdown of just what Trump would have to do to put his libel change into effect.
Okay, go ahead.
So the whole thing that the thing that he wants to change effectively is the actual malice part of the law, and that's not actually codified into law. It's based entirely on precedent. So it goes back to a court case, if anyone wants to look it up, Times versus Sullivan, which is where the precedent was set for actual malice of the person who's accused of libel. So he would have to basically get his own Supreme Court judges in place, which would require Congress to approve his nominees. And he would need a case to actually go all the way to Supreme Court. And for whatever justices happen to be sitting at the time, which most of them wouldn't be his, to overturn that precedent. So whilst it's technically possible that he could change the way that libel law is applied, it's extremely unlikely.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. I want to hear about what Lone thinks about the whole political situation. Like, I mean, in terms of who you're going to vote for.
All right. Frankly, the whole political scheme is garbage. I mean, for fuck's sake, our options are what? Hillary, Bernie, and what are the Republicans other than Trump? Anybody?
It is Cruz and still Kasich, but Cruz.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, Cruz.
So we got
Cruz
Hillary,
still up.
Bernie, Trump, Cruz.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, so Republicans got Trump, and Democrats got nobody.
You could always get Romney back in convention, man.
That's not going to happen.
Oh, they want it to happen so bad.
Of course.
If they want to, they can change the rules. I mean, it's not likely to get them the election.
Well, they don't even have to change the rules, Wayne. They don't even have to. They just know what they are. There are a lot of rules,
he would need to, the rules as they stand, he would need to win 8 states, which obviously he hasn't done. So they would need to kind of bypass that whole thing and move beyond that somehow. But I just don't see it being in their best interest to sabotage Trump, looking likely as he is to get at least close to the finishing line.
Well, most of their corporate overlords would prefer they vote anyone other than Trump, because Trump isn't on their particular payroll, and that makes it dangerous.
You're buying into the dichotomy of the of this right-left thing. one of the things that really revealed the fallacy of that was this meeting that happened in Sealand.
With the
Sea
Apple
Island.
and...
Well, yeah. So they had there were 50, I think 4, maybe 53 private jets that all landed in Sea Island, Georgia, to discuss how to defeat Trump, and it was the full spectrum.
Mhm.
You know, like if you buy this right-left dichotomy, that wouldn't have happened, and yet it did.
No, it's not a question of buying the right-left dichotomy. It's accepting that the people who cast their votes do.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Or more importantly,
thing.
they're gonna lose all of the Trump supporters to God knows where. I mean, Trump could, if he gets shafted, could very, very feasibly go ahead and run as an independent, which would... I've said this before to you guys off there. What I want from this election is the most entertaining outcome. And as Jesse Ventura has already suggested, he might get his hat in the ring. We could end up, theoretically, with some crazy situation where Hillary's running on one side. On the other side, you've got whatever puppet candidate the Republicans decide to throw under the bus in place of Trump. And then you've got Trump and Ventura running as independents, and I would just sit back, open up the biggest bag of popcorn that the world has ever seen, and enjoy the shit.
And they settle it in the ring.
Oh, that'd be even better.
The problem with that is that in the end, that would probably leave the Hillary in office.
Yeah.
Now, what would be the long-term consequences? Now, one thing which I'm okay if Hillary actually becomes president. It's not my ideal, but the problem she's going to have is that I don't think that she can really exert the same kind of political power that, say, Obama did. He was a very popular president, a very charismatic guy, and there's all kinds of history and all kinds of stuff that's great with him. I just don't think that Hillary... I mean, he's the first black president. It's a big deal.
I got in a car wreck because someone fucking hated Obama that much.
Really?
Literally, in a guardrail.
Well,
He turned around and started yelling, "Fuck Obama."
Okay, that's great, but I mean, if you look at his numbers, he's got pretty good numbers.
Your anecdote, hilarious as it is, I don't think is representative. Can I just point out, by the way, we've been joined by an extra from the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Hey, Cave Dweller.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Cave.
Hello, Cave Dweller. I've been on YouTube. I've had this account for 10 years, if you can believe this. I just never made anything.
I feel you there.
I believe
it was in the TeamSpeak server.
Hang on, is this your live stream content producing cherry popping extravaganza?
No. He actually had one with Jim. Like,
right.
Fucking Mr. Medicare.
Eric, I don't want no sloppy seconds, man. Get someone else.
TeamSpeak server.
I've been on streams before. I just haven't made that many videos. I mean,
I mean, the prime activity of most people here is trolling other people who don't make videos except these streams.
Yes. Videos are for people that don't have real jobs.
Exactly.
Like, fuck.
Some of those people have made millions of dollars, so don't knock that.
Yeah, that just proves the price discovery mechanism is broken.
So where are you from?
Are we just talking about PewDiePie?
I'm talking about PewDiePie.
We're talking about a Swedish cuck already? Come on.
So many cucks.
PewDiePie, Markiplier.
Oh god, don't make me puke. Where are you from, Cave?
New Jersey.
Okay.
Oh, New Jersey.
So
Dear sweet lord.
He's going Chris Christie all the way. Is what he's doing.
No, fuck that. I hate that guy.
No,
oh, yeah? I don't know anything about him.
Awesome.
Were you a teenage love child?
What?
I know nothing about. I'm from California. I know nothing about Christie aside from like a couple things that's been in national media, but that's it.
One thing I know about Christie is that he's fat. That's the only thing we know.
Well, for one thing, I know that he'll never legalize weed, which is stupid on his part. But hey, whatever.
I want my paw now.
Exactly.
I want my paw, please. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, man. Don't knock it till you try it, Letty.
Well, I am gonna knock it.
No, but for real, Ron Paul. No, but for real.
I mean,
Legal pot. I'm going for legal meth.
I mean, Pat told me that Ron Paul wanted to build the walls, and I'm a full-on Ron Paul train, if that's true.
I finally get to see what this kid looks like. I've talked to him before. I've never seen what Lone looks like.
What the fuck?
Probably another fat neck beard YouTube guy.
Looks like he's the devil. It's just red.
The chins you got. Oh, okay. Can't show us. Show us the chin!
Nice try, motherfuckers.
Oh,
You ain't seen this glorious beard.
Well, actually, I think we saw you when you were doing your katana stuff. Your weird katana stuff.
Well, okay, some of you saw me when I was doing my katana stuff.
I didn't.
But,
oh well.
but that shit ain't live, son.
Was it the same day that I showed my knives? Probably
Yeah,
was.
pretty much. Yeah, it was. I'm not sure if you guys want to know what the European perspective on this is, but if you want to know what the mainstream European perspective of it is, it's Americans are Bible-thumping idiots who need to be educated and be more socialist. That's pretty much the European perspective.
That reminds me, the Bible ratio is way too high. I need to buy more Bibles.
Exactly.
Bags.
That's the European opinion, at least the continental European. I don't count the Brits as being European. I will never call the Brits European. I won't insult their legacy by calling them European. No, but it's just, it's pretty bad. I mean, they pretty much just think that you guys are all a bunch of crazy people, and you guys love freedom too much. You guys need more security. You guys need more surveillance.
We love freedom too much.
Yes, exactly.
Freedom isn't free.
You guys,
Well,
you guys just won't let me put a slave collar around your neck.
pretty much.
The fuck?
Well, I mean, but they have to realize though that this is pretty much just the media, so it's sort of Marxist central.
Well, that's the one.
This
This is the one thing that I guess Lenny, you and I have figured out as being a core situation in the continental area is that it appears that opposition media in outside of the UK in Europe is suppressed.
Non-existent.
Well, yeah, no, but it's directly suppressed because we've been able to pull up many instances of them being directly silenced.
Yeah, for example, one of our major parties was silenced. Had to pay big fines because they quote unquote did hate speech, they committed hate speech. I'm sorry, not did hate speech.
So this is a political party that was banned.
Yeah, but you have to realize one thing.
The very idea of a political so like in the United States, we have pretty much literal hate groups of any stripe are allowed to operate and recruit and do whatever they want, as long as they don't literally commit violence. Now, the instant they do that, they come under some censure and they'll be prosecuted for the violence.
Mm-hmm.
But just for saying things, I mean, you can say them anything, anything.
But there's one thing
and
you have to realize.
There's no repercussions for it, really.
So one thing you have to realize about this certain instance where it banned a right-wing party was simply it was actually done by a government institution run by the current government, which was a socialist government coalition, and they pretty much sort of went, our opposition said something about our opposition said they wanted to cut welfare checks to illegal immigrants. Oh, that's hate speech. That's incitement to discrimination. And that's a government institution managed to ban an entire party.
It's as if these motherfuckers read 1984 and went, you know what would be a really great way of running a country?
Right.
Exactly.
Belgium is free.
I have been saying that for over a year.
I watched the introduction to the newsroom.
Yes, exactly.
And it said Belgium's free. Like, you think Belgium's not free?
Well, I mean, yeah, I already told you this, but the entire fucking cop Smurf thing, and now we recently had a case of 4 cops using their actually attacking people and extorting them by using their badge and their gun.
Or their gun that no one else can have.
You should explain the Smurf thing for those that.
Okay, so. There was a case of a cops doing drug testing, alcohol testing for drivers. There was this guy who took a picture of a cop testing the car in front of him, and he posted on Facebook, and it said "Oh, the Smurfs are checking this guy's car out." Afterwards, the policeman found this photo online, and his family also found it, and his family started calling him a Smurf as a joke. Now, the policeman went to the courts and sued this man for cyberbullying, and he actually won the case, and the man had to pay a lot of fines, and one of the excuses, for example, the attorney was using was he was saying, my client has been offended by the amount of times his family has called him a Smurf. That was one of the excuses they used, and he actually won the court case. So if you call a cop a Smurf online, they'll sue you. You have to pay fines to the police department. It's fucking insane.
That's the dumbest shit I've heard in a long time. And I've heard a lot of stupid shit.
They have been floating that trial balloon pretty consistently in the United States. With they want to, for one thing, they want to give the press like the right to be the press. Like they want to create like an authorization system. So and of course the game with that would be then they only determine people that play ball to be press, and they only extend them press freedoms. And then what they want to do is they want to start going in and by one mechanism or another chilling opposition speech online. So like comments that you could make right now on YouTube might become something of where an IP trace would happen. YouTube would receive some sort of a legal document, and someone would knock on your door, and that is absolutely something they're pushing for. I mean, there's a congresswoman who was palling up with Brianna Wu, for example. I think she's out of Massachusetts, and she's very serious about getting the FBI to track these things down. And as we know, Brianna Wu, she was mostly just kind of getting people to disagree with her, maybe call her an idiot. And sometimes Brianna Wu was making fake accounts. But whatever.
Oh, well, you insinuating bastard. How dare you?
No, it's not
proof. There's a shit ton of proof.
That was proven on Steam.
So
it was proven on Steam.
Fuck your sarcasm. Fuck your sarcasm.
She used her actual account on Steam. That's the beauty of it. She tried to start shit, but then she noticed, oh, wait, hold on. I'm using my actual account. Did you see that? Did you see that screenshot?
No.
Everyone has seen that screenshot.
Yeah.
God damn.
I haven't, because I stopped giving a fuck many months ago.
So it's also
I'm on the same boat as Blaine.
I think that was over a year ago.
I'm only referencing it in the context.
I stopped giving a fuck because
I'm only referencing it in the context of the legislation that she's ultimately supporting.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. Look, hypocrisy is always going to be the common theme when we talk about.
Oh, that isn't even hypocrisy. That's fraud.
Well, of course. But it stems from this kind of bullshit projection that they're all guilty of. But it's interesting. You were talking about the desire to create this kind of cyber policing system, and I read a review of the recent James Bond movie, where somebody criticized it on the grounds that the bad guy being some guy who just wants to take all your information and use it to spy on you isn't necessarily very scary. And I thought, really? in the current climate, in this day and age, that doesn't strike you as utterly terrifying? Because that's how it begins.
That's why I love trolling, because it's a really good way of, and I don't do trolling, this is something that Guinness has pointed out, or maybe we need to come up with a new term for this, but one way you can get people to kind of pull their head out of their ass is to go with whatever premise is just coming out of their mouth, and then carry it on to its logical conclusion. Not just tell them you're going to carry it on to the logic. Just do it. And ultimately they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, now I understand. And they may not even connect what's going on with what they were previously saying, but they will immediately start going, okay, whatever this thing is that's happening has to stop. So reforms you were saying that we had to do, which I'm not going to admit that's where that came from, yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think
that is a form of trolling.
Yeah, well, the point I made to Will was that I just think that people use the term trolling kind of nebulously, because like I feel like I've been onto several different boards and for different reasons, like different boards that are totally separate from each other, and people just call troll on anybody who seems to not be like I've seen people use troll for people who don't understand things, and it's just like
Okay,
I don't know.
there's two different things going on there.
What?
One is you've got people who, for example, will throw an accusation of troll against people who don't follow the forum's, say, code of behavior, which might be completely invisible to no actual code of conduct, just the nature of the society which you're going into. All forums are like this if they've got their own kind of culture and they have their do's and don'ts. So you come in, you behave like somebody who's brash and doesn't belong there and doesn't know the local customs, and they call you out as being a troll. Those people are fucking morons. They don't know what a troll is.
Yeah.
But then you have the other issue, which is that trolling actually is quite nebulous because there are very, very many different forms of it. So you can't pin it down and say trolling is this one thing. I guess you could say that it's something which is deliberately disingenuous. In that you're not being direct, you're in fact false flagging yourself. But it's not that simple. Trolling can take many forms. That's why it's a nebulous term, because it just
Indeed.
is.
Completely agree.
Yeah, for example, one thing that happens a lot in like the Young Turks or whatever, they like to call anyone who disagrees with them trolls.
Yeah, I
like the
see that a
chat.
lot.
Yeah, and that's sort of
Like I
not
can't tell you how many
disturbing,
times
that's
I've gone into an area where I disagree with the people and I made an argument and they just immediately call you a concern troll.
right.
What,
So-
not a shill? You haven't gotten shill yet?
No, I've got
I've gotten shill, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I
Every
mean,
time I say boycotts are a good idea, hey, shill this, shill that.
So from the 3 Americans, who are you guys actually going to vote for? If you vote at all.
I have had the precedent of planning on voting for Ron Paul until he dies, but now that Trump is in existence, and depending on certain circumstances, I may vote for Trump. It is about a 55% likelihood currently I'm voting for Trump.
What about Lone and Will?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to have to do Trump as well. I mean, it's at this point it's Trump or Hillary. Those are my two choices. So.
And Lone?
Well, I don't agree with Trump on several of his issues, even though he goes back and forth pretty often. The main thing is he pisses off all of the right people. He really does. I mean, like Will was talking about earlier, he pissed off quite a few people, and they got all together to fuck up his worldview. If anyone's going to get my vote, it's the person that's going to cause the most hatred among the, I suppose, current aristocracy, as you'd put it.
Right. Okay.
That's a theme that's really common through politics just about everywhere at the moment, is people being hugely dissatisfied with with what has been the establishment for a fucking long time.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got that happening here. There's a big campaign going on to change the way that we vote for our various representatives, trying to get away with this first past the post thing. It might potentially lead to a situation where we have indecisive governments, but I think that would be preferable to having something which is at its core undemocratic. You shouldn't have a situation where effectively around about a quarter of the population gets to decide what the other 75% do.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's obviously having a system like that is inherently just, it's not even democratic. So, I mean...
yeah.
What about Cave? Who are you going to vote for?
I honestly don't know. I might, because I mean, if you think about it, we're fucked either way. I mean, on one hand you got Trump, who might want to build a wall to keep everybody out.
Awesome.
On
That's
the other,
awesome.
That's the best idea.
You have to build walls, not build bridges. Bridges are for losers.
I mean, I'm
Dude,
not a real
China has a wall. Why can't we have a wall?
Yeah. I'm not a
Anymore.
real libertarian because I like a wall.
Exactly.
How is America in general on the anti-Islam thing? Because one of the things that's coming out a lot is that this whole Trump wanting to prevent Muslims from entering the country thing is like this big fucking deal. I presume it's a much less of a deal over there than it would be in, say, Belgium.
It depends on how established they are and how much money they have.
No. Okay, here's a thing that is not well understood about American culture. Think of the stupid horror movie cliche, right, where you've got, I don't know, like 10 stupid teenagers that go into the spooky house, and each one of them is a personality archetype. America is not any one of those people. It's the group.
Mm-hmm.
And in different situations, different people in the group are going to be in charge. There's going to be the situation where the dumb jock is in charge. There's going to be a situation where the little nerdy guy is in charge. There's going to be a situation where the cheerleader's in charge. I mean, it's just whatever. And the thing that confuses a lot of foreign powers when they engage the United States is that there'll be these very sudden personality shifts. This is one of the things that confused both the Empire of Japan in World War II, and it confused Osama bin Laden. There was a pattern of behavior, an action-reaction going on between the United States and these various powers, where they would do something, they get a certain reaction, and from that they sort of got a personality baseline. But what they didn't appreciate was that if you hit the whole system with a hammer, it actually shifts who's in the seat.
Yeah.
And so you get a very rapid and total change. So you go from, World War II, where the United States was getting dicked with on kind of a regular basis by the Japanese and just kind of going, whatever, we want peace, to we're going to fucking slaughter you motherfuckers. And you wouldn't anticipate that unless you understood that there's kind of a group that have different personalities. The issue with Islam is they're ringing America's bell. And we want, the peace, lovey-dovey, general prosperity, all that kind of stuff. But if you start ringing our bell, you're going to get a very different archetype that you're contending with, and it's in every one of our it's in our collective sort of national psyche. We're all these people at the same time, and so we had the 9/11 thing, which was a bigger deal for the United States than I think a lot of Europeans really understand. See, there's sort of this attitude of like, get over it. We're not getting over it. And it just colors every interaction. So that's
I mean the way the fact that like 9/11 has just literally shaped, like if I were to talk about like America in general, like in terms of eras, there's like a new era started after 9/11, post 9/11 America. It's totally different. Things change so much, and everything has been informed by that. It's a niggling thing in the back of everyone's mind constantly.
Well, not just in the back of your mind. I mean, it's affecting your life as well. It's affecting actual events that happen to most people traveling to America, for example, are going to be subject to much more rigorous. Not just in America but elsewhere as well. I mean, the whole thing had really wide-reaching. A wide-reaching effect on the way that people go about doing their business, and I don't think it's a case of people are saying America get over it. That's definitely not true. I think that largely, or maybe I'm speaking only for the UK, but I think mostly we are tending the same way when it comes to the danger that these radicals actually pose. We've had obviously fewer deaths as a result of terrorist attacks here directly, but it's I don't think this is something that America is alone in. There's definitely
Yeah,
an
7/7.
anti-radical Muslim. Yeah, there's some solidarity there.
I've actually never heard anyone say get over it, get over 9/11. I've never heard anyone, well, mainly because it's America, but who has been saying that?
I can hear progressives saying it, especially in Europe, definitely.
If you turn on MSNBC, you can hear that. If you open the New York Times, you will read it in black and white.
Well, it's funny. It's funny how they don't tell black people to get over slavery or the Japanese people to get over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. No, America has to get over 9/11, but everyone else can.
Actually, they will say that.
Yeah, that's the great part.
No, they will. No, and that was like for example, there's this whole Cologne situation where
get over being raped.
What literally happened there is murky. Okay, I don't know. I wasn't there, but I do know
you were.
No, okay, but see, it doesn't matter.
I like that you specifically have to deny that. That does actually raise my suspicion.
No.
Will, were you there?
Whatever. Clone.
I want to explain why it doesn't matter. Because if you look at the way that feminists will respond, say, to some sort of innocuous comment made from an anonymous account to an anonymous account on the internet and cite misogyny, which is hate speech in their mind, right? They believe this should be a jailable offense. And then you look at what was going on in Cologne, and they're saying, no, there's no problem here. And if you look at, say, the way that black people have been used by these political forces in the United States, what you'll see is they want black people to be angry and to demand things when that happens to coincide with their political interests. And when it doesn't, they need to be quiet. And that's been a very consistent theme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, for quite a fucking while, too.
So my point is, they absolutely do tell black people to get over it. They tell women to get over it. All these women in Cologne that are saying that they were, like groped
Keep arm's length.
Dudes. They're basically being told to stop being such a racist and get over it.
Yeah, I mean they're Muslim, which means they're right when they fuck you.
What was a cultural misunderstanding when they fingered your pussy?
So you said no, and they elbowed you in the temple and fucked you in the ass anyway.
Yeah, that's just how they say hi.
That's how they do it there, man.
Yeah.
That's a greeting.
Which is actually, I don't know if you guys have been following.
Respect.
I don't know if you guys have been following this in the open source community. I'm more active in sort of the technical stuff than I am in a lot of other places. And so there was this big shitstorm between the Linux people, basically, and a bunch of, I don't know, they were like corporate human resource community organizer bullshit people that were integrated into the Linux community as part of a corporate outreach thing. And so these people were getting involved in the open source community, which is very much a meritocracy. It's similar probably to what Alan, that's the little doggy over there, interacts with in the modding community, right? I mean, no one gives a shit what your opinions are if you're not actually able to do anything or contribute anything. If you're the one who's writing the kernel code, you're useful. If you're the one who is tweeting about how great Linux is, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, you're setting up the narrative. If you are the one that's trailblazing, no matter what you're doing, you're the one being there first. So you get the advantage. I've seen this multiple times in the modding community that he mentioned, that people are just so afraid of doing what's besides the standard, and when they do, they get a lot of respect, because there's a lot of modders that are trying to do something on modding, and what they do is not exactly great. For example, they mod something that it's not very well done in terms of quality, but the fact that they done it, it's very respected. So I think that's a very brilliant parallel that we'll trace that with being the trailblazer carries a lot of responsibilities and carries a lot of weight, regardless of the quality of your doing.
Well, you've earned sort of a right to have an opinion here. And if you are coming into this contributing nothing and telling everybody else how they have to do stuff, then who the fuck are you? But there's a bigger problem here. So one of the hypocrisies is that, say, they will go and they'll say, oh, well, you know, when they were fingering your pussy, that's just a cultural misunderstanding, right? And you need to be more sensitive of their culture, right? So, but then these same people will go into the modding community or the open source community, which is it's very analogous to just kind of the way that people act on the internet in general. You know, people are going to be kind of rude and crude sometimes. They're going to tell people to shut the fuck up. They're going to tell people, you know, this is how you kill yourself properly. Please do that. Yeah, well, because you know that's just
Down the road,
internet
not
is.
across the street.
Right. Yeah.
Down
Here's
the road,
what
not
you buy
across
the
the
razor. It's going to cost you this much. Amazon can get you, you know, the package to you tomorrow. So
No,
let's make
fuck
this,
that
let's make this
shit.
happen.
Hardware store now.
Down the road,
Razors do
across
it.
the street. Would
Yeah.
you recommend Jim because that's awesome.
No, it's way older than Jim.
Well,
I can show you the images of that go back to the dawn of the internet, man. But yeah, so the thing, what they'll do is they'll come into these modding communities. They'll come into these modding communities and they'll say, you know, you need to be more sensitive of my values, and you guys need to grow up. I mean, it was the same thing that was going on with Gamergate, that gamers need to grow up. What that demonstrated was a lack of sensitivity and tolerance of a different culture. That culture must change to match my culture, which is, of course, contradictory to what they do in other situations where it serves their interests to have a culture change. So they don't actually, the line you can draw is they want these things when it's in their interest and they don't when it isn't. And that's really all there is to it.
Right, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, this hypocrisy it's like you said about the whole an American system, how it's a Marxist against everybody, right?
I mean, I would say that's in the West in general at this point.
Would you say, well, what about the rest of the world?
You mean places that are outside of the Western political culture?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they don't have the Marxists, so they just have everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, they tend to do stuff like, execute them.
That's true.
So they don't really have that problem of people speaking out of turn and making a load of shrieking noises.
We could talk to Barat about how they deal with Marxists. I believe what they do is they cover them in honey and then chase them around with fly swatters. I don't know what the hell they do.
If ever there was an argument for inviting millions and millions of Muslims to come and live in Europe, it's that we can hope that they would at least silence the Marxists.
Oh, they would.
I mean, literally silence them permanently. I just would rather not live next door to Muslims.
Somehow you'd have to funnel them towards the Marxists.
Well, my preference would be sending the Marxists over there.
That would be the better solution.
Well,
No. It could be. It could be. It's happened before.
That was basically what happened in the first in the Soviet-Afghani war.
Yeah.
So we've actually seen this.
Damn it, Will, you're up on everything.
For the benefit of chat there, we could say cultural Marxists, but at this point, I think they're the only kind of Marxists we have to worry about. So
I prefer the term crypto Marxists because they and crypto refers to secret. Because what they don't like to say they're Marxists a lot of times. They'll say, "Oh no, I'm a social democrat," or "I care about the children," or whatever.
I thought you were going to go with it because it's a secret to themselves, because they don't actually realize that they are.
Oh, I think a lot.
I call them problems that take 26 cents to
I mean,
solve.
they're useful idiots and whatever. But I mean, a lot. I mean, look. Okay, so how many of these politically and also look at the origin of the term politically correct for those not familiar with it.
The origin of politically correct term was actually formed by the Communist Party in Soviet Union to do purity tests on their own party. That was where it came from.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about when we talk about political correctness. But
go ahead.
But yeah, that's sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, so
the term
political correctness literally comes from the Soviet Communist Party, literally.
Well, all right, yeah. So if you look at the academic roots of a lot of the things that are being pushed, I mean, so like for example, remember the whole Digra situation where they were looking at it was the feminist academics examining the gaming world.
Dear sweet mother of God, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, fine. If you actually look at the people that were in that group and forget, no controversy, no conspiracy, they were self-described Marxists. I mean, that's how they describe themselves.
Yep.
And you can find this in really almost all of the literature, and this is not feminism specific. This is because it's all one giant fucking octopus here. I don't know how coordinated and aware one part is from the other. I mean, that's Wayne's argument with it. They don't even know what they're doing, and I would agree with that in a lot of cases. I think the academics do. I think the brain trust
some of them. I mean,
to a certain extent.
I can only really cite my own experiences here, but I've seen people whose political beliefs are certainly not anything you would consider to be communist, suddenly, usually due to some kind of an attack on their conscience, suddenly become rabid, foaming at the mouth social justice types, and it's this notion of that they really do believe with the glazed over fucking look of your cultist. They really do believe that what they are doing is the true and right and correct path. They don't see themselves as Marxists. They see themselves as being progressive, and they think progressive is necessarily a term which is a positive thing. Well, it's progressive. It's going forward. It must be good, right? Just because you happen to be going in a forward direction doesn't mean to say that you've got a qualified driver at the wheel.
It's also Whig history.
I've lost friends to this. I've literally lost friends to this, where they're like, oh well, I read this thing and it convinced me that we're destroying the earth and I have to go and vote Green Party now, and because I'm now a Green Party supporter, I have to go and swallow their fucking bullshit whole, because otherwise the whole fucking house of cards would come tumbling down and I'd realise what a retard I am.
I had to apologize to a friend for choking him a few minutes.
Well, I mean, I have a crazy family who wants to disown me if I'm not a Marxist, so, not literally, but I mean, pretty much figuratively. They're like, I mean, for example, I was told as a kid I could vote for any party except the right-wing parties. That was pretty fun. My brother has actually said stuff like, if you ever vote for the right-wing party, I won't want to talk to you anymore, and stuff like that. It's just pleasant family. When it comes to politics, at least. I mean, they're fine with other stuff, but politics are just messed up ideologues. Pretty messed up.
God damn.
Yeah. And these people, your family and other people like them, probably think that what they're doing is like honest to goodness, the right thing to do, that they're morally sound, and they're not at all being brainwashed, albeit very, very slowly, the boiling frog, by an ideology that is even more toxic than this fucking radical fucking Islam that we see, because it's suicidal rather than homicidal.
Yeah, my dad is a literal Marxist because he was also a union organizer and he was very active in that organ. Well, I mean, he was kind of an asshole. And my mother, she's not really that bright on politics, so she probably.
I thought you were going to say he was an organ grinder.
No, union organizer.
That would have been. Yeah, Wayne gets the imagery.
Oh yes.
How is that different?
No, but it's weird. I mean, it is. I mean, Belgium. It's really the political correctness or whatever you call it is not way worse, pretty much way worse. There are like a few exceptions. For example, we have a very strong tradition of blackface in our country, which there's no objection to except from some SJWs. Most Belgians don't give one crap. We have a lot of celebrations in which people dress up as blackface. You know, they paint their face black and have very tushy red lips. And you know, but when it comes to any of the other stuff, it's like even I think like if we import Kasich to Belgium, who is a very moderate Republican, that guy would have been accused of wrongthing for so many things. The guy has wrong opinions of everything, and especially Trump. I mean, Trump is literally Hitler. Literally Hitler here in this country. It's yeah, it's just fucked
Literally,
up.
he killed, you know, like something like 8 million people.
Well, no, pretty much.
Not figuratively.
So what happens is, okay, so what do Belgians see? Okay, we see a guy who wants to build a wall, very problematic. He likes his country, that's very, very problematic. You have to like supranational organizations. You can't like your country.
Yeah.
Man, what the fuck?
Hail Asia.
Didn't the Soviets build a wall?
They did. Didn't work
yeah,
too well.
yeah.
I still got shit from that.
I mean, when it comes to the Soviets, I mean, I still find it so amusing that Merkel, she actually went from West Germany to East Germany for some stupid reason. I don't even know why. Anyway,
Why
brought
is
up
Merkel on fire?
you brought up blackface there, Lenny. Did you witness that whole thing in the Netherlands with Black Pete?
well, no, exactly. Black Pete is actually also Belgian tradition, so it's
Okay.
two
Well,
coincide.
that's why I was asking, because you share a lot of obviously cultural background.
Right, yeah, definitely. So Black Pete is a Belgium Dutch. It's also done in some areas in Spain. But yeah, we have Black Pete, pretty similar to the Dutch. The Dutch actually, some areas in Dutch replace Black Pete with like sort of LGBT Pete or something like a
Yeah,
rainbow.
they got rid of him.
They got rid of him.
Black Pete, for those that don't know, was well, it's a tradition going back for forever, where they have gloved black-faced people acting as Santa's helpers.
Yes.
And
exactly. Yeah, like
yeah,
a saint, Santa kind of guy, and he.
yeah,
and he has,
much like the rest of us have elves. I don't see a lot of people complaining about elves being somehow, but I can see that happening at some point.
Well,
You know,
if
that-
there was a group of pointy-eared people,
Look,
Hey,
I identify as Elrond, okay, and I find it offensive.
I'm Elfkin, and I
That's
just
all
like
it
to say, I'm smaller than 5'7", so I'm offended.
Well, the problem is that they're not actually elves. They're Vulcans who are malnourished.
Oh,
Well,
they're
you
fucking
could see-
pinched then.
You could see,
I
for
will-
example, the dwarfs taking issue with it.
Hey, leave the Jews out of this. Sorry, dwarves.
I'm on record
Oh.
that when we all start identifying as other things, I'm just going to identify as a tentacle monster.
Yes. I mean, oh no.
That's a weird response, but yeah, no. But
Yeah,
the Black Pete is sort of yes, I want you. No, yeah, the Black Pete is very weird because, like I said, Belgium is very PC, but the Black Pete, a lot of Belgians.
Well, so is Holland.
Black Pete. Yeah,
I mean,
Holland is-
Holland is another country that is renowned for preaching racial tolerance, and
Yeah.
it's bizarre that this tradition that I don't know how old it is, but I know it's been going on for quite some time. Is suddenly
more
deemed
than
to
100
be
years, definitely. Yeah.
it's suddenly deemed to be the most offensive thing ever. I don't recall any actual black people standing up and saying, yeah, I'm offended by this.
Well, I mean, like most. So that was obviously anecdotal, but I know there are a lot of black people in Belgium, and I know not a lot portion of them, obviously, and they really had no issue with it. They're like, well, I really don't care. It doesn't seem to like offend me or something. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I think the agenda is it wasn't a national agenda. This is obviously
No, actually,
look how the rest of the world views this. That the rest of the world looks at us and thinks we're they
And
think
it's pretty
we're
similar
minstrels.
because it's because a lot of the Belgian protests against it was actually started by American blacks who saw this tradition and were like, oh, look, Europeans are so racist. Let's bash them. Also, something that happened recently was that it was a very prominent Native American woman who complained about the fact that one of our soccer teams has a Indian mascot. And that's also very problematic. But the team isn't called Redskins, it just has an Indian mascot. Apparently that's weird for a country that never even met the Indians. We didn't have native Indians.
It is actually really funny. Belgium has these Indian headdress logos that they use all over the place for no reason. It's bizarre.
It's cultural appropriation. I think that the whole country should be burned.
Yeah, so we have a big soccer team, one of the best in Belgium, who has this Indian, and we also have like the airplanes from like our ministers have this Indian head next to them, and that's it. No one cares about that, but people really do care in my country about
Which team is it? Is it Ghent?
Ghent.
Yeah.
The two biggest teams in Belgium tend to be Anderlecht and Ghent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I knew it wasn't Anderlecht, so it was kind of a contest.
Yeah, probably Ghent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's it's weird. I think the tolerance is just there because I think there's part of the Belgians that they really don't care about such trivial stuff. At the same time, they'll ban someone for using the word Smurf to cops. I don't know. It's weird. I think one of the reasons the Belgians don't have anything against this because actually it's a kids festival, Black Pete. So they're like, yeah, whatever. The kids don't really care. And and the story they were told at the same time is actually they're not black, they're just ash faced. That's what all the kids are told. So I think people really object to it. Yeah.
So I've got the origin of them using it, by the way.
Right.
Apparently it was because the city was visited by Buffalo Bill and his Wild West Circus.
Right, yeah, exactly. Because actually, it's interesting because
that's so awesome. That's
Yeah,
like Fernando Cortez coming to the Aztecs. Except Wild Bill coming to the
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Because one of the nicknames for Ghent in Belgium is the Buffaloes.
Yeah.
They're also one of the names they're called, so that would make some sense they would have it there.
Yeah, that's why they used that imagery. It's apparently it coincided with an upturn in their performances. So they went, okay. Obviously, Wild Bill was lucky for us, so we're gonna start using this headdress for some reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Sorry,
cultural appropriation.
Well, apparently it is. According to one of your Native American activists.
Well, to be fair,
one of your Native American activists who has a freaking star from Obama. So,
to be fair, that's actually cultural appropriation from a culture that had already been appropriated. So I don't know what happened there.
That's called cultural appropriation squared.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
As long as it's not cute.
America has the right of conquer to actually claim that culture as its own.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant cubed. Sorry.
So cubed. But
There we go.
but
There we go.
It has the right by conquest to use that to appropriate any part of that culture they want. I think, but that's
And
just
Bill
the
Gates did not have
What you're
a
saying is the
conquest.
Belgians are allowed to use
Ergo,
the Congolese culture.
Well, what I'm saying is the Belgians would have to conquer America to justify having a Buffaloes football team.
no, I mean that's funny because we literally, we went to Congo, slaughtered a few million there. That's fine, but we didn't take any of their we didn't appropriate anything from Congo. We just left there.
That's sad. Did you at least appropriate?
Some rubber and made some kick-ass tires, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true. I mean, but we also made their infrastructure a bit better. But,
I mean, you got a choice: burn Congolese or burn rubber, bro.
Well, but there's economic guilt. Like I said, it's we pay a lot of fines to Congo because we feel guilty for something we did like 140 years ago, 150 years ago, and it's that's one of the things we still give a lot of money to.
Why?
I don't know.
Anyway, okay, so we didn't really get too much into the American politics thing. Like
Oh.
we touched about it.
We deviated, but I think we
Yeah.
deviated.
So I kind of want to like let's go back into that a little bit.
Okay, good.
What is people's perspective here been on the race itself? And let's get some opinions on some other candidates besides Trump and where everyone stands on the different candidates.
What, Republican candidates?
Could be either side.
Well,
Because I don't know that it's at this point even relevant. The other candidates on
All right. Well, the three
Republican
main
side?
ones that are possible right now. Well, I guess Bernie's not even really possible right now. So I guess just Hillary and Trump.
well, yeah. Okay, fine. I put my personal opinions. I don't like Hillary because she's probably pretty. She's psychopathic. I don't know. She doesn't seem to give one fuck. Trump, I like because he trolls people and he gets people upset. And like I said before, if Marxist Europe calls your leader Hitler, then you're doing a good job. That's just what I'm saying. It's like I don't know. It's I think Trump is okay. Cruz, I liked Cruz before he went full liar and started doing sneaky snake stuff and started lying about Trump. Then I didn't like him anymore.
I'm just going to go on record here and say I got a fucking sneaky vibe from Cruz the first time I fucking saw him speak.
Yeah, honestly, I always hated Cruz.
Well, I don't hate him. I simply dislike what he does. I mean, Cruz is
Honestly, I think
given
Cruz
some
is
position.
way worse than what anyone ever said Trump was. I think I can't remember what it was, but he's just said some horrid shit in the past. There was this woman that introduced or something like she said like death to all the faggots or something like that, and she like then introduced him at a speech or something like that. So like he's not exactly I don't know. He's a douche in a lot of ways.
Well, and I mean, then you have Kasich, and Kasich only won Ohio, and that's the only state he's going to win because that was his home state. Yeah, Bernie. I mean, Bernie has some of his progressive tendencies. He has a pretty bad plan for America, and he gets all the college students hot. So I don't know. I don't know. I think Trump will be okay. I mean, there's obviously a big problem in America with the Mexican border and what's happening there. I don't think we hear the cartel stories.
You racist.
Well, okay, fine. I mean, sure, but I'm not the one putting people in ovens like the cartel is doing.
Protecting one's sovereignty is absolutely not racist.
And let's face it.
My solution, which I suggested to some people to mixed reaction, is why don't you guys just start shooting the Mexicans crossing the border?
Well, the thing is, most Hispanics actually like Trump more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem that way.
Well, it does.
Why? Because they actually want to fucking do shit in America, and the vast majority of the people they know are douchebags. It's pretty cut and paste there.
Right. Yeah, and
if
I mean,
you've got if you've got the choice between drug-dealing psychopaths that don't give a shit who they shoot in the face, and the people that want, work and a livelihood and a way to pay for everything that they have to pay for, who do you think's going to win?
See, immigration is another big issue at the moment that's going on. I mean, it's obviously central to this European situation.
Well, it's very part of Europe, right?
Yeah, and it's about the erosion of that sovereignty. The EU has really fucking torn the walls down as far as that's concerned. They've we're in a situation now in the UK where I think the figures are something like 20% of people living here weren't born here.
Right.
And
a lot of people also don't talk English, which is also a problem.
Right. That's
it's
insane.
something like bending over and saying, fuck me raw.
I mean, like I told before, it's like the country that invented common law now has replaced UN human rights garbage. It's sort of
right. So I'm okay with migration, where you have a system that is practical and where integration is likely. So, for example, Something which a lot of different countries do, and I'm very much in favour of. Like Australia, for example, does it.
Point system.
You have a point system whereby you pretty much only allow those people in that are going to benefit the country in some way. So let's say you have a dearth of engineers, you can suddenly weight the system in favour of engineers, and you get more engineers applying. You get the same number of engineers applying, but you invite more of them in. That makes sense. Inviting people wholesale to come and just fucking set up shop. It's not this. It's not even necessarily the whole notion of taking jobs. Where that's a very kind of simplistic way of looking at it. They're not taking jobs. They're taking industry. So sure, to some extent, they actually create opportunities for industry, but they're competing with businesses, and they're competing on, in many cases, unfair terms, because you've got large numbers of illegals as well as the legals. The whole thing's a shit show at the moment, especially, as I say, in Europe. Europe is an absolute mess on that front.
Well, here's one thing which you can throw out. And if I were, this is theoretically, if I were president, this is honestly how I would deal with the Mexicans. I would have a reciprocal immigration policy wherein they can send as many people to the United States as I can send to Mexico. And they have to be accepted in Mexico on the same terms, either way. So, for example, if I want to immigrate as an American to Mexico, you'd think that would be pretty easy to do, but it's not. They actually have a pretty stringent immigration policy, Mexico does. And becoming a Mexican citizen requires that you jump through more hoops than what we make Mexicans jump through to become an American citizen. A lot of other things, like you can't own property. A lot of times, I think you have to be natural born or own property in certain contexts. So in the United States, the only thing that's restricted to natural born Americans is the presidency itself. To these guys, there's literally whole industries that you can't have. And let's say you even want to invest in Mexico. Keep in mind, the United States frequently prefers to do business with China than it does with Mexico, despite the fact that we've got to cross the Pacific Ocean to do it. Because we have a history with them wherein when we invest in them, they just steal our shit. And this has just been going on for a while. So, I mean, the thing is, they say that we're racist for not accepting them in, but they wouldn't accept if a million people from Alabama wanted to go and just live in Mexico, just crossed into Mexico randomly, no fucking border check, just boom, hi guys, we're just gonna live in Mexico now. The Mexicans wouldn't put up with it; they'd deport them all. And you could say, oh, you can't deport a million people, and the Mexicans would say, watch me.
Mm-hmm.
You know. It's a lie, and it's a double standard, and they know it. And so, let's say you're Guatemalan, right, and you want to live in Mexico. Well, you're going to be going through the same bullshit. The Mexicans are not going to let you live in Mexico without making you jump through a whole bunch of hoops and going through the proper procedure. And if you don't do that, well, have fucking fun with that. So it's a joke, and everyone knows it.
Yeah, one thing, for example, I'm very amazed by is one of our quote-unquote, what they would call I suppose my country, right-wing party said something like, borders are old-fashioned, we don't need borders anymore. Like, that's just the stuff, that's like the average, that's what most people actually think in Belgium. Even though there has been more skepticism of refugees recently, still most people simply think that Belgium shouldn't have borders and we should just be a European sort of subservient state of Europe.
And they're not alone in that. Do you know what it is? Is this crazy fucking idealistic thinking where people think that they can make something real just by believing in it. It's right. It's a very, very, very fucking dangerous and very common issue. I mean, if you look at what it is that they believe is in the now, I have no doubt at some point in our future, should we survive long enough, that we will end up eventually uniting under some kind of one world state. I think it's kind of an inevitable point in our future. but you can't force it to happen. It's something that will come about because of necessity or because it just makes sense. But borders will and have. They were set up. They were established not actually that long ago in terms of right to abide. But eventually those borders will come down. It won't happen certainly in our lifetimes. It might not happen for thousands of years. That's the timescale I'm looking at. But they're trying to make it real by just by legislating for it. Just going, you know what? Hey, let's just tear the borders down and be done with it. And it's such a fucking crazy, stupid, fucking irresponsible thing to do.
You also seem to think they can somehow legislate from a different continent about you, and it's somehow going to make sense in practice.
Oh, well, look, I mean, we've got this issue of sovereignty again, and you're talking about the situations that you've seen discussed regarding how European human rights law is impacting on people's lives because they're falling foul of the bullshit that protects anyone but the citizens of the nation where they're being applied. Like the guy that was on The Big Questions, whose family was basically decimated by some crazy drunk Iraqi driver.
Right.
And it's just appalling. I mean, it's an injustice. It's crazy. It's absolutely fucking crazy. And I would much rather see us in the UK get the fuck out of Europe and revert back to common law, or come up with our own, as we previously had the right to do. Come up with our own human rights bill, which I think every nation should be entitled to do so. Every nation should. You shouldn't have somebody you didn't vote in deciding what your rights should be. I think that's fucking disgusting.
Right.
Looking beyond Britain's stint in the EU, assuming that the Brexit succeeds and England breaks out of the EU. Has there been any serious concern given or thought to what then? I'm not saying you have a lack of options. To the contrary, I think you have lots of options. But, I mean, one thing that I've always been a little baffled by is that the English have not really tripled down on the Commonwealth. Because that used to be a great source of strength, and there is certainly an opportunity for that. That's
because of the trade restrictions that are supposedly benefits that are imposed by being a member of the EU. We have a situation whereby, for example, let's say Canada has a region that's really famous for producing some kind of textile, and they produce fabrics and they produce whatever you fucking need from whatever it is that they're producing, and we would have to source it in, say, Italy first if they had a similar but inferior product. We wouldn't have a right, and we'd have to do it via whatever terms were agreed to as part of whatever fucking deal you've got going on there. You can't shop around basically. You don't have the right to go and buy and trade with who you want to. And there's been a great deal of thought gone into this. I mean, we existed just fine without the EU, and we traded just fine without the EU. I mean, no nation, I think, prior to the EU traded as effectively as we did with so many different nations. I mean, we were
you were
out
also
there.
lied about it when you got into it. You were lied about it. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Absolutely. Now, what you've got occurring here, you've got two sides to this. One side is the we're being shafted side, which is focused primarily on the facts and also focused on, look, we can do what Canada do, we can do what Norway do. Norway has all the rights of the free market in the EU, but it doesn't have any of the obligations. There's no reason for the things that we export, and I've mentioned this to you guys before. The things that we actually export are things that people need. We're not exporting basic products. We're exporting high-tech goods that are, in many cases, amongst the best in the world. Now, if you believe that the market for those products is just going to suddenly disappear overnight, then you're a fucking idiot. So on the other side, we have the scaremongers, and literally all you will hear from David Cameron and the rest of the Stay or Remain group is, oh no, it's scary, dangerous. We need to. Britain is nothing without Europe. We're fucking insignificant, and tiny, and small, and we'll curl up into a little ball, shrivel, and die if we don't have the EU. And that's the entirety of their argument.
It's actually, the Europeans are actually in a much greater bind, I think, than a lot of people understand, because one of the things that is not been cited here is what country is the heart of the European banking industry?
London City.
Right.
London.
The city of London.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's something that they cannot shift overnight. They have dreams of moving that to Paris and Berlin and whatever, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And a big part of the problem with that is liquidity. It's one of the reasons why these markets tend to condense into singularities, is because when you are moving large amounts of capital around, you want as liquid a market as possible. It's one of the reasons why, say, U.S. Treasuries, which is U.S. debt, is taken to be one of the most liquid markets in the world, and people love to kind of throw that around as just sort of like a type of currency, effectively. And it's just because there's a lot of it, and it's reliable, and so it doesn't, even, you know, people that don't like the United States, that maybe hate the United States, when push comes to shove, they're going to start moving around U.S. Treasuries. And it's just because it's liquid. And the exchanges in London, they've got the it's not just Europe, they've got the international participation that causes them to be more liquid.
Well, London actually has the highest amount of forex trading out of any city in the world.
Yeah,
So
and that's not going to change.
Crazy in the city of London.
Yeah, so they're not going to, so they can't move that. So
no,
if they move, if they try and I don't know, exile London to the fucking island, they're going to seize.
Absolutely, and look, this is the situation. Europe is being held up by 2 or 3 member states, and I say 2 or 3 because you could argue that France is playing its part as well. Economically, without one of either Britain, France, or Germany, it's gonna be a massive system-wide shock that it'll throw Europe backwards. Forget about the impact on Britain. Britain's impact will be literally, oh, we have to go and negotiate some fucking trade deals with some people. The effect on Europe will be crippling, and that's what all of this. That's what all of this this Remain nonsense is about. It's why there is so much support for Remain. It's why Obama's coming out and saying, no, you guys got to stay. Don't throw a spanner in the works. We don't want to go through some kind of crazy fucking recession as a result of Britain making a choice. That's what the fear is.
So this is a general argument I hear from some people who support Europe. They say Europe failed, but Europe failed because Europe doesn't have enough power. So with the increased power Europe has, then it can succeed perfectly. And that's something the Brits don't want, or at least some Brits don't want. And therefore, you know, all the federalists in the European Union are like sort of spitting on Britain. Like, oh, you're so selfish, or whatever.
Well, this is actually, have you guys ever heard of the term failing up? It's a very common thing in U.S. politics, more so at low levels, like in cities and whatever. But the notion is somebody is politically connected, but they're an idiot. And so they're in a position where, unfortunately, competence is kind of important. So what you will do is you'll promote them into a position that is ostensibly more prestigious, but which actually requires less competence because you've got, I don't know, assistants and stuff that will basically do your job for you.
We got a good example of failing up in the mortuary situation we discussed the other day.
Well, not really, actually. He went back to his old job, which was actually arguably lower, but But yeah, he shouldn't have even. That was inexplicable. It's just so other people understand what was going on. The mortuary in Los Angeles, this is where I live, is apparently completely fucking failed to be able to do a toxicology scan on somebody for like 6 months. The backlog on doing a toxicology scan on a dead body was 6 months. And so they basically the bodies had stacked up in the mortuary, and they were like sort of just running out of space. And the budget for the city of Los Angeles mortuary was, I believe, $35 million a year. And you know, it's not like it's fucking Baghdad in Los Angeles, you know, like where there's like you know, bodies everywhere. It's a relatively typical major city for, you know, the actual total death toll of, you know, and it's, you know, most people die, you know, they slip in the shower, they have a heart attack, whatever, and they can't deal with it because the people that are running it are basically too busy playing Angry Birds to do their jobs. So there you go.
All right, we're about at the 2-hour mark. You guys want to start wrapping it up, or keep going?
Sounds good to me.
Doesn't matter for me. We can talk about something else. I mean, we've been talking a long time. I can talk about something else. Doesn't matter. I have time.
For structural reasons, you might want to break the stream, and then if you wanted to create an additional longer duration hangout stream that's more freeform, you could go with that.
Yeah.
That might
so
be more
we'll
organized.
I'm okay with leaving it. I mean, look, we're talking politics here, which is a subject which we could each of us spend the rest of our lives talking about and never get to the root of it. So there's little value in talking for the sake of talking. So if you want to kill it there, then I think that's probably a nice place to leave it off.
All right, so
Since we're
thanks to-
breaking up the stream here, I want to finish the stream with this audio clip that you guys are going to love, and homage to our dear Triggered stream going back live. Here's something that you guys are probably going to hear. The guys from the old school are going to recognize instantly. You guys that are probably younger won't. Here it is. Hold on.
Rise from your grave.
That's it.
That was so blurry. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking hell. Don't break it. Don't break it.
It was just like somebody yelling into a pillow.
Rise from your grave.
Live from...
Oh, come on, dude. You don't get it?
Dude, from, like, you want to yell in a pillow, you can do that. That's what it sounds like.
I think he's eating the paper towels.
Oh.
I'm not sure where you wanted to go with this, but I don't think it's time.
Yeah, you guys
quite-
fucked it up.
I
You
could
guys
stick my head. I could stick my head in the toilet bowl and start yelling. Also, would sort of sound similar.
And with that, I think that is a beautiful way to end this live call.
Oh, bloody hell. What I miss?
Don't worry, Lon, you didn't miss much. We're going to keep going after this. We're just going to end the live stream. But thanks to all of our viewers who joined us tonight.
We had a record high of 7 or 8.
Yeah, we had a record of 8 tonight. So thanks, everyone, and take it easy. We'll see you possibly in a few weeks.
All of my hate her belongs to you.
Say goodbye, everyone.
Die in a fire.
Later,